This is the new 2016 Harley Davidson 883 Iron. For a long time, this, along with the standard Sportster 883, has been the entry-level Harley that has ticked all the right boxes. But let's face it, it's never really been all that exciting. Don't get me wrong, I've always had a soft spot for the Sportster range. The only problem is that, well, they've always felt like little more than entry-level bikes.
Thing is though, times have changed. While the 883 Iron is still considered to be the go-to bike for those that want to get into customs, there is now competition and it comes from within the Harley Davidson family. But before I get onto that, we're going to take the Iron out onto the road and see what's what. I suppose the first thing to note about the 2016 883 Iron is that if you've ridden any 883 Iron since its inception, you'll probably know what this bike is all about. It's pretty simple, there's not much to it. But it ticks all the right Harley boxes without any of the obvious downsides, looking like an attention-seeking haul, for example, which you get with some custom bikes. There are a few changes worth noting, whilst most of them are cosmetic. There are a couple that are welcome updates, mainly in the way of rider comfort. The front forks are pretty much the same, although they have been slightly updated. However, the rear suspension is completely new. It's a big, meaty one that's is taking the bumps on the road very nicely, and you add that into the fact that there is now a new comfier seat, and suddenly you are a lot better off, or at least your buttocks are a lot better off than on the old model. If you're not familiar with dark custom, don't worry, there's not much to it. Basically all it is it's Harley Davidson's range of less showy accessories. So for example, this bike that I'm riding at the moment has a matte black tank and matte black exhaust, which I actually really like. The 883 Iron has always been my favourite in the range because it's not particularly showy. There's not a lot of chrome on it, it's not particularly oversized, it's not particularly too loud either. It's probably one of the most practical bikes in the range. However, one thing that's worth noting is that while the 883 Iron may be one of the most practical bikes in the Harley Davidson range, it doesn't really need to be anymore because it has had the new Street 750 and outside of the UK the Street 500 come in and take that mantle away from it. So I'll be interested to see what happens with the Iron.
What we really should be paying attention to is the bike that has finally hit the UK market, and that is the Street 750. Now there is a 500 version available outside the UK, but we only get the 750. While that might seem like an odd decision given that it's so close in engine size to the 883, it actually makes a lot of sense. The bike industry went into a bit of a meltdown when the new licensing laws came out a few years ago, with numbers of people taking their full licenses plummeting. Since their latest revamp, numbers have returned to a more comfortable level. However, there is a lasting effect, with manufacturers trying to make sure that there are plenty of entry-level bikes for new riders.
I've been waiting to ride this bike for a long time. Partly down to the fact that it's a new Harley Davidson, but also partly down to the fact that this is a very different kind of bike than what Harley is used to. But to be honest, they're going through a bit of a renaissance at the moment with bikes like this, the Street 750 and the 500, and Project Livewire bike. But one of the reasons why I think this is a really important bike for Harley, not just the fact that it's a very, very good entry-level bike, is that young people are going to love it. First thing to note is that this is a very easy bike to ride. It doesn't really feel like a V-twin. If anything, it feels like a triple or a four-cylinder. If you've learned to ride on a 600cc four-cylinder, you'll feel right at home on this. I think my only criticism of the 750 is it's possibly a little bit soft on the front end. It tends to dive under braking. And with the 883, you do sort of get a nice clunky click into gear on the gearbox. With this, it's a little bit nondescript, if you know what I mean. One of the reasons why I think young people will like this bike so much, well, firstly the price. It's about £1,000 cheaper than the 883 Iron, but you do get quite a lot for your money. You don't get an alarm, however you do get a very comfortable bike. It's got a liquid cooled engine, which means yes, you've got a big fan at the front, but it's much easier to commute on. But the thing for me is it's so comfortable. While I was riding the 883 Iron before, the bones in my arms were just getting rattled to pieces. With this, not at all. I feel like I could ride this all day. One of the biggest reasons why this is going to sell to young people, though, is because this is Captain America's bike.
Yes, this is the bike that Captain America, or at least his stunt double, used to bravely take on the evil Lord Greenscreen and Winter Soldier. Unfortunately, it didn't last very long, as he ended up destroying it in the new Avengers movie, before eventually swapping it for a Project Livewire bike, which seemed to be ridden by some random guy that was clearly not Scarlett Johansson.
I feel a little bit sacrilege that I'm riding Captain America's bike whilst wearing Batman underwear. Sorry, Cap, if you're watching, which you're probably not. I'm very confused. I was not expecting to like the 750 this much. I thought it was just going to be a watered down version of other Harley Davidsons, but it's not. It's a completely different kind of bike. It suits me down to the ground, and I'll let you into a little secret. I actually went into the Harley Davidson dealer a few days ago looking at an 883 Iron, thinking about maybe getting one, but having ridden this, yeah, I could see myself on one of these. I just might end up getting one. Don't tell my wife that, though. That's just between us. Internet. I'm a little bit disappointed that we don't have more time to ride the 750. We've spent so much time this morning on the 883 Iron that we've simply run out of time and fuel, actually. I'm going to end up having to do some of this review at the side of the road. When I was planning these road tests, I was thinking that the 750 Street and the 883 Iron were going to be pretty similar. In fact, I even wrote in the script that there's not really much point comparing them, but having ridden them all day, it's completely different. It feels very light, it feels very nimble. It's an odd feeling, actually. It doesn't feel like a Harley Davidson, but it's one that I actually really like. So when it comes down to whether I would have an 883 Iron or a 750, I was actually under the impression that I'd want the 883 more because it's just the prettier version of the 750, but it's not. The 750 really is a completely different bike, and if anything, it's a better bike, and I think between the two, I'd have the 750.